Hey everybody, welcome to Tournage du Bois, our first live turning today. So I hope this goes well. I appreciate any and all feedback that you guys want to give. So I appreciate you taking the time to come by and watch as we do a little bit of turning. Just going to be messing around. It's not going to be a big project today. Just going to turn some pins just to mess around, get a feel for doing live YouTube stuff. Today, Hodge had something come up, so he was not able to join us today. But Adam with I Loved Wood Turning is joining as my earworm today. He's a good buddy of mine, part of the Fork and Bananas group. And I look forward to chatting with him and getting to know him better as we go through this as well. So I'm going to flip over to the overhead camera. And Adam, you can start talking to say who's in.
Hello, everybody. So let's work down the chat, Daniel, and let you know who's on board. We've got Tommy from Tommy's Workshop. We've got William Ellis. We've got Deadwood Casting and Turning. We've got William Ellis. Moving down, we've got Vicky Jenkinson. Hi, Vicky. Brickhouse Craftworks. Hey, Gab. And I think I'm at the bottom of the chat. So there we are. If there's anyone else in the background, don't be shy. Hey, Rob. Rob CP just joined us. If there's anyone there in the back of the chat and you're feeling a bit shy, make yourself known to us. We'd love to speak to you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Adam. And hi, everybody. Hope everybody can hear and see everything okay. Please let me know because, like I said, this is my very first time doing this. So just a matter of making sure that everything looks and sounds okay. So like I said, I'm going to be turning a couple of pins today. So I'm going to start with a smaller blank of Spalted Tamaring. What I'm going to do is I'll turn it down, sand it, finish it, and then I'll jump to the other pin blank, which is going to be a Stabilized Maple Burl. Then I'll turn that, sand it, finish it, and then we'll assemble the pins. Just goes a little quicker that way. So we'll keep this live at just about an hour or under and see how that goes. So hopefully nothing's too loud or anything, but in the test lives, it wasn't too bad. So
cool. So Daniel, we've got That Would Do It Creations have joined. Mark Innan's just joined us.
awesome. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to start off with my spindle roughing gouge and just kind of get it into a good round shape. And then we'll fine tune it from there.
So Daniel, Seth sent out a chant to you. Daniel, 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 Daniel.
So thanks, Seth. I appreciate that.
And we've got Doug Miller from Woodspun Round just joined us.
Awesome. Thanks, Doug, for joining. How are you today, sir? So I really like working with Spalted Tamaring. I don't know how many of you have out there, but I really like how the graining and the spalting looks through it. So super excited to keep working with this. It does get a little bit rough, I find, in working with pins, just because it can be a little bit softer than a lot of wood, but I really enjoy the finished product of it.
And we've got another banana joined us, Daniel. Leona Faye Wood Turnings in the chat.
Hi, Miss Leona. How are you?
That Would Do It Creation says that he can never find Spalted Tamarind locally. Daniel, have you got any hints and tips as to how to find some?
For me, we have a woodcraft store not too far from where I live in Kansas City, so it's about an hour away. But I buy blanks through them. I look online. A couple of places, like in the U.S., that I can get it is like woodturnings.com with a Z. Penn State Industries typically has them, but Woodcraft has them quite often on hand. You'll get 5 or 6 pin blanks for anywhere from $12 to $15.
Well, that sounds
U.S.
pretty
So
reason. That sounds pretty reasonable, right? Commercial price is normally through the roof, so
yeah,
I think,
absolutely.
yeah,
So
normally we could expect to pay for a decent kind of resin wood mixed hybrid upwards of £10 for a
wow.
commercial one with someone like Taylor's Murfield or Beaufort Inc. in the UK. But yeah, that doesn't sound too bad.
Yeah, it's not too bad at all.
Hey, Daniel Prouts in the chat.
Oh, hi, Di. How are you? Hope everything's going okay.
And Making a Better Life is also in the chat.
So Di signed in under both channels.
Yeah, I was just going to say, what's happened there?
He might have jumped in under his main one and then signed out, so switched over. But at any rate, welcome, Di. Thanks for coming along.
It's a good way to increase your subscriptions, I'm guessing, right? To have more than one
Right?
YouTube account.
Well, that's how I got my first 25 subscribers. Was I just created a whole bunch of fake accounts and subscribed to myself. I mean, isn't that what we all do, right?
Well, I do have about 7 or 8 Google accounts, which I have helped 1 or 2 people out with in the past. So yeah, let's
Right.
not let the secret out.
Oh, sorry. I guess I wasn't supposed to say that part. So, all right. So when I do my wood blanks, I always leave them just a little bit proud of the bushings, just so that gives me a little bit of sanding room. So I've got the shape that I want. This is a wonderful little insert that I have because I have a larger 1-inch post on my lathe, and a lot of the smaller tool rests aren't quite the 1-inch size. So Nova makes a little insert, and then you can fit a smaller piece, a smaller tool, a tool rest into those, and it clamps down really well. So that works well when you do a pen blank that has just one part to it.
Cool. So what kind of mandrel are you using there, Daniel? Is it a compression mandrel that you've got on at the moment?
Yeah, so I'll just move this out of the way real quick, but basically it's just a 7mm mandrel. The bushings, of course, just slide right over that, and then the tailstock comes up and just pushes it together to make sure it stays nice and tight.
Cool.
So it works out really well that way. Wanted to check something on it real quick. So yeah, I'll just do that, and then I'm going to go through sanding grits. I'm going to start out at 150, and sanding on these don't take too awfully long, and then we'll just work our way up through the grits. So I was turning, when you turn a pen, I always turn it at the highest speed I possibly can. So I have that running at about 2,600 to anywhere from 2,600 to 3,000 RPM. And then when I go to sand, I drop it down typically under 1,000 for wood pens.
Hey, Daniel, say goodbye to Di. He's having to drop out. And I'm
have a good one,
sure he'll
Di.
watch it later. Yeah.
Thanks for swinging by. I would turn on my new dust collector system, but it is quite loud, and I don't want to drown everybody out.
Well, we should test it at some point, Daniel, if you like. It is your first live, of course, and I can tell you how that goes if you want to test it for a few seconds.
We can certainly try that. Let me get my dust hood set up. I need to get a thing configured to where I can have this mounted on the wall, so get the blast gate situated too.
So when you've switched it on, let me know.
Okay. I'm pretty sure you'll know, but yeah, I'll definitely do that.
I was hoping that you'd already switched it on.
No. Not here. Haven't done a single piece pen yet with this hood, so bear with me, everybody. Make sure all my other blast gates are closed and we'll be good to go. Okay, so I'm going to flip it on, but I do know that I cannot hear very well when it's on. So let me know how loud that is.
So look, I don't know whether you've got your noise suppression on in OBS. If you have,
yeah, I can't hear at all. So just an FYI there.
okay.
I'm just going to go flip it back off.
Yeah, do, and I'll tell you. So, so Daniel, it's more than acceptable, right? The noise suppression, either within your microphone or within OBS, you've probably got noise gate on in OBS.
Okay.
Did a fantastic job of suppressing that for you.
Okay.
The only time it gets a little bit noisy is when you're speaking, because then it opens up the audio a little bit, and you can pick a bit up in the background. But if you can sort out your audio issues with some headset or earphones, then I think you probably get away with it quite well. All right.
No, that's good to know. Thanks. I have the same headset that Hodge has, so it actually doesn't go into your ear, it goes over it. And so you get bone conduction on the sound instead of direct into the ear. So, of course, with the dust collector running, it just that's really loud in the ear as opposed to the speaker from the bone, but it drowns it out. So that was my 150 grit, and I'm going to jump to the 240. And like I said, I always do these. I leave this just a little bit proud, so that way when I sand with my first grit, I can get it right down to the same level as those bushings.
So Donna's just joined us, Daniel. And,
greetings, Donna.
I'm just looking back at the chat. Michael McEwen is in the chat.
Greetings.
As I said to you earlier, I'm not used to earworming either, as much as you're not used to doing lives, and I was just watching you rather than checking out the chat. So
no, it's all good.
So I think that's it. That's just joined. Leona's had to drop out, but yeah, we're good.
Thanks for coming by, Leona. The nice thing about turning wood pins is once you get done with the grit, the first grit, the rest of the grits go really, really fast. So
Rob's just said he's got a ball with grooves. His balls have got grooves in. No, sorry. He said he's just completed a ball with grooves on his trembler, which doesn't sound any better than what I said a minute ago.
Right. Sounds awkward and possibly painful. Have you seen a doctor about that, Rob?
I did get to watch some of Rob yesterday, and the setup that he's got going on his lathe to keep that trembleur together is astounding. It is absolutely astounding.
No, I need to go back and watch that. We had errands to run all day yesterday, so I was out of the house, and then I had recorded a video for this weekend, and the video setup was still in process, so it didn't turn out quite as good as I wanted. So then I had to redo some stuff and revamp the whole video. So I redid that last night. So then as soon as this is done, I'm going in to get that edited to upload for today, because I've got my announcement today for the Brad's Tongue Wax Kit giveaway that I announced a few weeks ago in my one of my first shop build videos. So,
hello, that sounds like an awesome prize.
Yeah, it really is. Unfortunately, just due to logistics and everything, we were only able to offer it to U.S. people, but hopefully at some point we can do that worldwide. So we're hopeful that way. But it's a great product that I'll be using. So I've got that sanded up.
If they need somewhere to store their products in the UK, you're welcome to send them here. No, I'm only joking, right? Because there'll be none get distributed if that's the case, right? Anyway.
No, I get it. So I've got this sanded up to 400 grit, and now I'm going to use my Brad's abrasive paste. And the nice thing about the abrasive paste, I mean, and this is going to be it's very similar because everybody always asks, hey, how does this compare to Yorkshire Grit, or how does this compare to Axe? All the abrasive pastes are going to be relatively the same. I mean, they're going to be similar ingredients. They're going to have an abrasive material in them. I like how Brad's finishes, but all the products that I've used have all been good products. I've not used Yorkshire Grit, honestly, so I can't speak specifically to that one. But Axe has been a good quality that I've used, as is Brad's. I just like Brad's because he's a good buddy of mine, and well, I like supporting my good friends. So
look, there's a few more good friends recently joined the chat of yours, Daniel. So Chris Dodds is in from Australia.
hi, Chris. Welcome.
John S. Casting's in.
Hi, John.
Copper Owl's joined.
Hey, Rob. How are you?
And there's one more. Pole Barn Productions is here.
Oh, hi, Doug. Welcome to my very first live, everybody.
I can't believe it's your first live, Daniel. What have you been doing?
What have I been doing?
Yeah, all this time.
Building a shop and trying to figure out how to turn the thing on. Now that I got the lathe figured out how to turn on, I figure I can do this, right?
You've got yourself sorted very nicely, I think, in there, and you're getting things together by the look of it. You're gonna, yeah. It's all looking very professional.
Well, I combed my hair, so that way it makes it more professional, right?
I think what's really good for those watching who may be new to wood turning is the thought that's gone into the dust extraction, the health and safety concerns, making sure you've got enough space around your lathe and the positioning of the rest of your kit, and especially the lighting, because people need to understand that, you know, it's not about putting a lathe in a shop and just switching it on. There are a lot of other things to think about up and around that, and personal health and safety is right up there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And that's part of what my video is about today. Is just the video I'll be uploading later this afternoon is literally a final walkthrough tour of the shop. So I show part of the dust collection, not in great detail because I know that there was a short video I put out about the build itself. But I mean, having that dust collection just to keep some of that stuff out of your lungs and off of your, just to cut down on the mess and things like that is absolutely worth every bit of it. So what I'm using now is I am using Brad's tongue wax. Typically when I put this on, I let it set for 10 to 15 minutes before I start buffing it in. And the reason I do that is because it really soaks into the wood and does a really good job of just really enhancing the overall look of the product when everything is said and done. Obviously, being alive, I'm not going to give it that kind of time today. I'll just give it just a few seconds and buff it out. And then I'm going to put an OB shine on this. I'm not a fan of CA glue finishes on pens myself, just because I like that tactile feel that you get when you're handling the wood in the pen. So you still know it, as opposed to having that plastic feel that you get with the CA, in my opinion. So with Brad's tongue wax finish, which is 100% natural, it is also food safe. Not that you're going to eat a lot of steak or anything off this pen, but you never know. When you're out and about and you just don't have a fork handy, maybe you really need something. But what I do is you start buffing it in, and then you turn the speed on the lathe up, and that really gets that friction going with the rag that you're applying the tongue wax with, and it melts it right into the wood, so it really holds for a long time.
So you've got another joiner, Daniel, Trurex 007 Lee.
Hey, Trurex. Greetings.
And Rob's asked a question, but I'm going to ask that in a second. Ask you that in a second. I just want to say to Donna, I'm truly hurt that you didn't know it was me with the disembodied voice. We've spent so many hours at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. Well, certainly my time. That I thought by now you would have recognised my soft tones. And Chris, you know, I do try to look after my hair. But Daniel, Chris is saying that your hairstyle is much neater than mine. So good for you. Anyway, so Rob was asking a question, and the reason I held off is because I know we had a bit of a chat about tech and lighting and other stuff at the start of this. Rob's asking, and maybe if the guys don't know, this is the first pen of 2 pens that Daniel will be turning today. He's got another pen which is a stabilized maple burl 2-piece, and that'll be coming next. Rob's asked if you might be able to zoom in at all in this shot.
With this shot, unfortunately, no. I have a fixed camera, and I'm not going to be turning a lot of pins on lives. I wanted to do a pin for my first one. This is just a much better angle for larger projects, which I'm hoping to do more bowls and things like that in my lives as opposed to just a pin. But for my first live, I was mainly worried about how it was going to look technically and just get myself through the process and get a feel for it. But unfortunately, I mean, I guess I could manually hold the camera if you really, really wanted me to.
I think carry on, Daniel, for now, and we'll take it as a note for the next one. See if you can't drop it. Maybe it is very clear and absolutely in focus. But it is
that better, Rob? No, it's out of focus though.
No, it's not too bad actually. That's come into focus now.
Okay. I can't hold that and turn though. That's the downside. So I'll put it right back where it was. But no, that's definitely good feedback, and I appreciate it. And I'll probably end up setting up a couple of this is manual focus, so bear with me a moment. But I might get another board that's mounted in my overhead shelf to allow me a little bit better zoom in also.
Oh, so look, I'm surprised Lawrence hasn't called me out, but Lawrence Bagage is in the chat as well, and I don't think I've mentioned him so far.
Oh, okay. Hi, Lawrence. Welcome. I think I saw a question earlier as I was glancing. I think Doug from Pole Barn asked about the insulation in the shop. It is actually roll-in fiberglass R13, Doug. I think as I was glancing at a stopping point, I think that Seth had answered him, but yeah, it's R13 value roll-in fiberglass insulation.
Yeah, I was just about to mention that, but there's an awful lot of chat about it. But
okay,
good answer.
Yeah, and with the price of everything else, I didn't use drywall or anything like that. I simply used super minimal boards to cover, just to minimize dust.
Yeah, I managed to get 60mm foam foil wrapped insulation into my walls behind a 20mm OSB 3
Oh,
wall.
that's great.
So I'm pretty tight on terms of that in my shop, but I was very lucky. I found a load that was at the end of a build of 15 or 20 houses, so I picked it up for next to nothing. It's the only way.
Works out great. Okay, well, so
you've got Mark, ahead. The gentleman wood turner, with you, Daniel. He's just joined the chat.
That's my earworming hero right there, Mark. Hi, you just listening to you earworm helped me adapt my style, so I appreciate that. And congrats on hitting 1,000 subscribers too. That's absolutely amazing. So the second pin I'm going to do is Stabilized Maple Burl. I got the first one sanded, finished with OB Shine Juice because, like I said, I'm not a fan of CA glue finish on pins. This is Stabilized Maple Burl. So I'm going to put this over, and I always do the cap end on the left-hand side, and then I do the body of the pin on the right-hand side. And what I do is, you can't see it very well, is when I cut the blanks, I always put a mark on the side where they line up. And that way I know that if there's any good graining that I can get to match up going through from the cap down to the body, then I can make sure that I have those in the right orientation.
Well, that's a good tip, Daniel. Right, and I've never turned a pen, so I've just got all the gear. I have no idea. Right, all the gear and no idea. I think I should change my channel name to that, to be honest. But
I have no
um,
idea, or I've never turned a pen.
and have you put the tubes into these already as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So I cut the blanks. I drilled them out because each pen kit comes with its own specific drill size. And on these pens, there's usually two different sizes of drill bits that are needed. So I drilled the holes, got the metal tubes inserted in, and then I used the Woodpecker's barrel trimming kit, which uses carbides to get good clean cuts, and they're oversized so they don't leave a lot of corners hanging off that like you get with some of the smaller barrel trimming kits. But I used that to get everything prepped up so today would go relatively smoothly for my first live, and I wouldn't have to be trying to jump back and forth to different areas to do different things. So,
okay, that's really interesting. Now, being completely selfish, but I'm hoping there might be others in the chat might also be interested in the answers to some of my questions. What did you use to glue those in, and did you sand the outside of those tubes before inserting them?
okay, so no, those are great questions because actually it just depends on the kit. So I almost always exclusively use medium CA glue to glue the barrels in, and I've never ran into a problem with that. Now, one thing to keep in mind is if you're doing an acrylic pen blank, which tends to be somewhat more translucent, then you have to color the inside of the blanks when you drill them out, or you have to paint the tubes themselves, because otherwise the brass tubing will show up through that acrylic, and then you'll be left with just this weird color right in the middle of the whole thing. So that's just one thing to think about.
That's a good tip.
Some kits that I get, so the pen kit that I just did, which is the bolt action kit from Penn State Industries, that tube and some of the kits that they sell, the tubes come pre-sanded. This kit did not come pre-sanded, and so I did sand that. I usually hit it with like 120 grit, maybe 150 grit, just to rough the tube up so that the glue will hold really well.
Cool. Well, personal thanks for that bit of advice. Thanks,
yeah, no worries, no worries. So I switched over to my larger tool rest just because this is a two-piece, and the smaller one, if I were to keep using that I use on the singles, I'd have to move it back and forth all the time. So just to save time, I put in a little bit bigger one, and I'll probably get a medium, like an 8 to 8 inch tool rest at some point. So we'll get these roughed in and then get those sanded and finished, and then we'll start assembling pins.
So just for the chat, Daniel's only using 3 tools today, I believe. We're using the spindle roughing gouge. I assume it's a 3/8 spindle gouge as well, and a bowl gouge are the 3 tools that Daniel's using to turn these pens today.
Yeah, that's
Daniel,
spindle. Go ahead.
This is the Navigator roller ball in chrome that you're prepping now. These 2 blanks for, is it?
Correct.
Good.
And I love rollerball pins. I think they look really nice and classy. They're not as hard to use as the fountain pens are, but they have that same look to them. And so I think that really adds a sense of class. So I always try to get a really nice blank that goes with them. And this Stabilized Maple Burl goes really, really well with that look, in my opinion. And if no one has ever worked with stabilized wood before, it does not smell grand, but it is not as bad smelling as elm is. Just an FYI.
Cool. So if anyone in the chat's got any questions for Daniel about his shop, about what he's doing at the moment, or anything coming up, just throw those questions into the chat, and I'll relay them immediately that I see them to Daniel.
Much appreciated, sir.
Lee's just left.
Oh, have a good one, sir. Thanks for coming by.
Yeah, good.
I appreciate everybody's taking the time to spend this time with me kind of last minute today.
And if it's a brilliant segue, Daniel, allowing me to say, and if everyone could smash that thumbs up button, as Vicky has highlighted, that would be fantastic. It is Mark. It is Mark. Yeah. So Vicky's asking you a question, Daniel. Was it already stabilized when you got the blank?
Yes, Vicky, it was. This is I've used this same blank before. Not the exact same blank. Obviously, that was the silliest thing I've said today, I think, but I'm sure it won't be the last. But yeah, so I've used this same type of blank before, and I've been really happy with it. So just as an idea of this is Stabilized Maple Burl. I ordered it through Amazon. There were 2 of them in the package, and I believe that the 2 of them together cost me about $15. So roughly $7.50 per Stabilized Maple Burl pen blank. And I'm really happy with that because a lot of your Stabilized Burl blanks can run anywhere from $15 to $20 a piece as opposed to 2 of them for $15.
So Daniel, I've just put into the chat. Mark, the gentleman woodturner, asked if it was me that was doing the earworming, which I have to say, Donna. Thanks for that, Mark. By the way, I've also just put in the chat. I'm not sure who's more nervous, you or me. So there we go.
Well, we were chatting beforehand, obviously, Adam, that nobody else knew we were chatting, but I was more nervous about the technological aspect of this. I'm not worried at all about the turning. I'm not worried about making pins. I'm not worried about talking. For those of you who know me, I'm not a shy person, so none of that really bothered me. It was the technological aspect with making sure that everything was working and that everything could be seen properly. So that's what I was the most nervous about.
And it's those things that you can prepare for, as I found, and I know a number of others who are here, Mark especially, who's done a lot of live time. You can prepare as much as you like to cover all the bases, but that's all you can do. If something then goes wrong technically, there's very little you can do about it. You have to find your way through it, and
Absolutely.
we always find a way, right? We'll always find a way. Yeah.
That's what we do as wood turners if we survive and adapt.
So Daniel, there's a question that's come into the chat for others in the chat, but I'm going to offer it out to you as well. It's
Okay.
It's a question about what kit would you recommend for someone turning their first kit?
Okay, so I know a lot of people like to say things like slimline pens. I think, in my opinion, slimlines, especially if you're doing anything other than wood, tend to be a little more complicated than they need to be, just because you have to turn them so thin, or else they look like, in my opinion, a sausage that's been tied too tight in the middle. I think one of the easiest pin kits to do, and this is just me, is literally the bolt action pin kit that I did the first piece with, because it's one piece and there are 2 other pieces that press into the end. So it is a super easy pin kit to make. And so you can put different shapes on the wood and it doesn't feel awkward. And I'll kind of show that when we put it together. But in my opinion, that's one of the easiest pins to do and probably a good one to start with. And Adam, I'm going to throw a curveball here because I think I'm going to try my skew
Good for you. Good for you.
Even if it's just for a minute, but I'm going to try it. And so live trying a skew, here goes. You're seeing history here, folks. And I don't like it, just FYI. But in my defense, I've not used it much either. So take that with a grain of salt. And if anybody has any feedback as to how I'm holding it or I need to do something different, feedback is always welcome.
Well,
unless you say something really mean and make me cry or anything, like insult my hair. That would make me cry.
So my knowledge of the skew is relatively rudimentary, but bottom third of the skew, 45-degree angle generally. Make sure it's planted. One edge is planted on the rest, and find the cut on the bevel. Don't go to the wood at a cutting angle straight in. But you seem to be doing a fantastic job there, Daniel. And I wasn't going to talk when you had pulled that out, and I was just going to let you concentrate. But it looks like you're doing a fantastic job there with that.
Well, thank you. Nice thing is I talk to myself a lot. Usually I don't say things I'm going to repeat, but I talk to myself a lot. So talking to someone else while I'm doing this is not the end of the world either. So I appreciate the feedback. There, see, I didn't get it far enough away, and so I caught a little bit when I was pulling it back this direction.
What I do with mine is I take a Sharpie to the bottom third on both sides, and I use that so that I can easily see where the sweet spot is on the planing cut. And then if I step outside that cut on that Sharpie mark, then I can expect to be kicked on the behind, so to speak, by the tool. But yeah, that looked great.
Okay. I'm going back to my bowl gouge now, so I'm more comfortable with that.
Yeah, so fair play. Thanks, Daniel. The string round a sausage, I'm definitely stealing that, and it seems that that's also tickled Michael McEwen and a couple of others. There are a few comments. Copper Owl Wood Turning says, "Don't skew up, Daniel." Right, which
Thanks, Rob. I always enjoy a good pun.
Yeah, these are all helpful after you've put the skew away, right? So I'm going to give them out now. Let's have a look here. John S. Casting says FBW. I've no idea what that means, but maybe someone can help me. And there's a fair amount of commentary about slimlines and people not liking them. And I have to say, I'm not shy about saying I really don't like those pens that have the bulbous elements at the top and the bottom. But I understand for some there's definite reasons. If you have challenges holding a pen, etc., that those can be far more comfortable in the hand. So yeah, from that perspective, I think they're brilliant. Let's just check, see if there are any other questions. There's a question here from Mark Inman. Any plans to start doing stabilizing, Daniel?
First of all, hi, Mark. Mark is part of the Woodturners Club in Kansas City that I'm a member of. So thanks for stopping by, Mark. Actually, I do. I have a stabilization pot. I have some burl pieces that I've been given that I'm going to stabilize. And then I'm hoping to do some hybrid stuff with them. So yeah, definitely. I'm planning on doing some stabilization down the road.
Cool. GTD Blair's in. And
hi, Blair.
Florida Bearded Woodworkers helped me with FBW. Thank you
Florida
for
Bearded.
that lesson. Yeah, thank you for that lesson.
I think his name's Mike. I don't remember, though. I apologize if I got that wrong. And by the way, big shout out to Blair. Blair's the one who gave me that skew. So big shout out to him. So just so you know.
Nice. Yeah, I have to say I've got a bit of a sheet going on in the background here, Daniel, and I've been avidly trying to write people's names down as I go through because it can be a challenge, right, when you're earworming, trying to recognise and remember everyone's names. But I'll get there. I think I
It's all
called.
good.
I think I called Lewis Huey and Huey Lewis last week, and
Well,
I
sounds
don't
like
even have a
news to
good pop.
me.
Yeah, I don't even have a good pop song to go along with it, right? So yeah.
Well, I figured I'd make a stupid joke there by, Huey Lewis and the news. So
I think I made that joke last week. Yeah, it was stupid.
it's all good. I remember Brian from Heartwood Turning yesterday in the live said, meant to say hi, Lewis, and actually accidentally typed in H8. So it said hate Lewis. That was pretty funny. So, all right. So I've got this cut down pretty close. I might go a little bit closer on these ends, but these two are really close. So I'm going to take a little bit more off here, and then we'll start sanding and get those going.
Wood turning by Barry, one of my neighbours. Well, not quite a neighbour, but from the same counties, joined the chat. Hi,
Hey,
Barry.
Barry. Thanks for coming by.
So, Daniel, we've got Hendu. I don't think I've introduced Hendu. So, hello, Hendu. Jason Perkins is also in the chat, and Wood Wizardry by Colin.
Awesome. Thanks for stopping by. Hindu is my good buddy Mark out of Kansas City. Great friend of mine. I made a bowl for him. But he's a really good buddy of mine. So, Mark, I just have a couple of webcams that I'm using, going through a Stream Deck and then through OBS software into StreamYard. So, Jason Perkins is a buddy of mine who actually came over and helped with some of the insulation and the walls and the ceilings and stuff. So he was in some of my videos. So huge thank you to Jason for coming by. And of course, as always, thanks for coming by, Colin, for sure. So yeah, I got that cut down. As you can see, like I said, I just love the way the burl looks, the graining. Hopefully that comes up okay with the lighting. But we'll get that sanded up and go from there.
So Brian from Florida Bearded Woodworker has just said that he's feeling much better. He's been healing and getting his business back to normal. He's even been hitting the pavement, taking his segmented turning to the art galleries in Sarasota. So really glad to hear that.
That's excellent, Brian. Good news. Glad you're getting better. So I forgot to turn my speed down there. I don't want to sand it at 3,000. It just gets way too hot. So I dropped it down to just about 1,000 RPM on this. And the other thing that I had to learn that was really weird to me was not putting a lot of pressure on the sandpaper. I just always, because I used to do house construction. So if you were doing any sanding at all, you sanded as hard as you could to get it done as quickly as you could. And that's way different than the process you use with wood turning, because you want the sandpaper to just do the work to get a good finish and not just remove a lot of material right away. So that's one thing that was different for me to try and figure out, was how to do the sandpaper process on these kind of things.
So Daniel, look, I know there's a lot of chat in many lives about types of sandpaper, web pads, all these kind of things, right? So, is this a paper backed, cloth backed? Is it an Abranet or a ProNet? What's your sanding method of choice from top to bottom?
Okay, so I don't really have a method of choice per se. What I'll show you here is I have a box specifically for pen finishing. It is paper backed. Actually, that might be cloth backed. But it goes from 150 grit all the way up to 600 grit. And they're just in real short strips so you can cut off. I have some boxes of that because I got them on sale. I also have some, let me grab one of these here. I have some that are exactly the same that I got at Woodcraft. These start out at 180 and go up to 600 instead of starting at 150. But these are more of like the ProNet, where it's just a netting that, so it allows the material to move through it, so it lasts a little bit longer. So I have both of those, and I use them both kind of interchangeably. On bulls, I typically use a 3-inch sanding pad with my drill. If it's a larger piece, if it's smaller, I'll just hold it by hand.
And I think the rule of thumb is not to double up on over double up on the grit sizes as you move up them, right? So if you've sanded at 120, 240 is as far as you should go with your next grit. You shouldn't go to anything higher than 240. Then 240, you should try to go to maybe a 320 before you go to 600, etc., or go to 400, then go to 600.
Yeah, so typically, yeah, it's just working your way through the grits. You don't want to jump too quickly, but you also don't really want to go backwards in the grits unless you absolutely have to. If you find some scratch marks you need to remove or anything like that, then by all means you want to go backwards. But for the most part, stair step up just one step at a time. Don't try and jump, because you're just going to miss some of those scratches that you would take out otherwise with that intermediate, the next step.
Do you have any thoughts particularly on reverse sanding at all?
I do use reverse sanding from time to time on larger projects, and what I'll typically do is I'll go one direction with one grit and then the other direction with the other. I won't reverse a lot. Like there's some people who will go both directions with each grit. I don't, because I have not seen a big enough impact doing it that way as opposed to just doing it this way. Now, the other thing I like to do on the burl pieces, and some on the, like the Spalted Tamaring, I didn't do this on, but I will almost always take the sandpaper when the lathe's off, and I'll go the length of it just to remove any radial scratches that you can get from the sandpaper, so it makes it look better. So you don't have these weird circles that are going around it when somebody's looking at it later.
Yeah, I think I do that with most spindles that I turn as well, Daniel, right? And especially if I'm not using an inertia sander, which in many cases you can get to turn with the grain. But yeah, that's a great tip, I think. Vicky's asking a question
Sure.
about the difference between paperback and webbing. I mean, I know what my thoughts are. I tend to buy the Abranet from 320 to 600, and I have slightly cheaper standard sandpaper for the lower grits from 120, 180 to 240. But what are your thoughts on paper cloth backed versus the webbing type
So
of?
yeah, so for pins, I don't know that it really matters. I haven't seen as significant of a difference between them. I will say that the netting sandpaper does allow the material to pass through it, so it doesn't build up quite as much heat as the cloth or paper-backed ones are, like this one. But you also have to keep clearing the material out on these as well. So I think it's kind of a personal taste preference. I have not seen enough of anything to make me sway one way or the other wholeheartedly yet.
So look, Daniel, I don't know whether you've heard many Yorkshire jokes, right? But we're generally thought to be a little bit tight. Short arms and deep pockets is one of the things that gets said, right? And I certainly find that I can get more life out of my Abranet as I can out of my quality tea bags, right? So I can make more than one cup of tea in a pot out of a single tea bag if I buy good quality tea. I think it's the same with the Abranet and some of the webbing. You can get an air gun and you can clear out the pores and reuse a good quality netting. If you use sandpaper, it really tends to be a one shot sometimes, right? And you don't get the same performance the second time around unless you pull a new piece out. That's
Sure.
my thoughts, right? But it's false economy to try and reuse standard or paper-backed sandpaper too many times, I think.
No, I agree with that wholeheartedly, and I do think that they last longer. I have not seen a difference in the quality of the sanding, but as for longer lasting, yeah, I would agree with you wholeheartedly on that.
So there's a nice comment here from Seth, Brighouse Craftworks. Daniel, my friend, you're a natural on the lives. Great stuff, and I look forward to your future live projects.
Oh, thanks.
Congratulations on the new. He hasn't finished. Congratulations on the new shop and the new setup. I've got to run, but I'll catch up with you later.
Awesome, Seth. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, my friend.
Tommy, I
So,
do like to be thrifty. I do like to be thrifty.
no, you are yeah, I understand. My wife is the same way. So you can just imagine how much fun she has had with me doing the shop. And I'll just leave it at that. But she's been very supportive. So one thing I'm going to do a little bit differently with this pen than I did with the Spalted Tamaring, and just because it's a piece of burl, is I'm also going to hit this with denatured alcohol, which I don't typically do a lot on my pens unless they're burl pieces, just because you don't get enough significant graining, in my opinion, to really need to raise the grain on stuff like the Spalted Tamaring. But the thing I love to do, the big reason I like to hit this with the denatured alcohol, is you really see that grain start to pop within the burl piece.
So Daniel, Debbie Beardall's joined. Debbie, you are just halfway through Daniel's second pen. This is a Maple Burl. It's going to be a Navigator rollerball in chrome. Daniel, you'll be putting both pens together, or attempting to, in the next few minutes once you've finished this one.
Yep.
I'm assuming.
Yeah, absolutely. And welcome, Debbie. Thanks for coming by. This is my 400 grit, so we're almost done with the sanding. Then we'll hit it with abrasive paste, the tongue wax, and then we'll start putting them together. And I'll put this pen together first. Actually, sorry, I'll put the other pen together first just because it's super quick, and that way you can see exactly what I mean by how easy it is to put, for that to be, in my opinion, a great pen kit to start with. I personally love the look of the roller balls and how they write and feel. That's my personal preference, and I really enjoy making them because I like how the classy look is. But if you, going back to that earlier question of what a great pen kit to start with is, in my opinion, that bolt action one is a perfect one to start with.
So Daniel, have you seen these resin pen blanks that have exotic bird feathers in them? I think they look absolutely amazing.
I have not.
Yeah.
Where
So
did you
there's
see
some.
them? Did you see them on Instagram, or where did you see them?
So in the UK, there's an American lady, I can't remember her name. I'll find out in the next few minutes, that makes them for Beaufort Ink, and they have tail feathers from peacock and bird of paradise and everything else laid into clear resin, and they make absolutely exquisite pens. They really, really do. It's the sort of blank that costs you £25 because of the artisan aspect of it. It's really, really, it's not, I wouldn't belittle a resin blank, but there's an element of trial and error with some, right? You put your colors together and you mix them with a stick and it creates something magical. But if you wanted to repeat it, good luck. Whereas these exquisitely laid bird of paradise feathers and other feathers that have been picked up off the floor, or through zoo or otherwise, and she inlays these into the pen. I'm waiting to see if anyone beats me to it. No, so I'm going to have a good look now, and I'll see if I can get the name of the lady that does them. But you should check those out.
I will definitely do that. I like doing all sorts of cool looking things, and if that's something I can do, that's the great thing. I have a good relationship with the local zoo here. As those of you who've been following my channel for a while or have looked through any of my videos know, I did the finials in the Japanese garden, and so they call me up and say, "Hey, we're taking down this tree or whatever. Do you want the wood?" So I might reach out to them and see if I can get some peacock feathers, and I could try making some myself.
So anyone that's in the chat from the UK, the lady's name is Marla Christensen. She lives and works in Canada and specializes in casting amazing pen blanks, it says on the site. Actually, they're selected game bird feathers. But they're unbelievable. Clear casting polyester resin, and they already have the tubes in, I believe. So check those out, and those can be found on beaufortinc.co.uk. As I've never turned a pen, I'm not about to spend £20 plus on a blank that, quite honestly, I'll probably ruin. But I've seen a couple of pens using these, and they are amazing. So there you go.
No, definitely. I'll check that out. So yeah, I've used my abrasive paste. Now I'm using the tongue wax from Brad's Workbench. So definitely, if you're in the U.S. and you want to be entered in a chance to win some of this, definitely go comment appropriately on my video in my YouTube channel. He has an Etsy store. Most of my videos will have a link to his Etsy store to be able to order some of this. And like I said earlier, Adam, we're certainly hoping that he can start getting this internationally at some point. He's been making this exactly 1 year, which is why he's doing the giveaways that we're doing right now.
Cool.
But it just makes a stupendous shine. I don't know how well you can see that shine coming up on this pen, but it's absolutely amazing. So
it does look it. It does look good. And as I said to you before we started, a lot of these products are not yet available in the UK. They haven't really made it across here. There are some equivalent products available, but certainly these names outside of the US and Canada, I think, are all new to us.
So then I'll hit it with a little bit of OB Shine juice just to give it that long-term pop. The tongue oil or the tongue wax will keep its luster for a long time. The OB Shine juice gives it just a little bit extra protection and a little bit higher glossy finish. I usually will do, depending on the wood and what other types of finish I use, because I've also used a gunstock finish on pens before, and it looks really good. But with Brad's tongue wax, I'll typically do 1 coat of the OB Shine juice just to get that luster right up there and keep it up there. If I'm using a different type of finish that doesn't have that same feel or finish look as the tongue wax, then I'll do 5 or 6 coats of the OB Shine juice to give it that nice pen shine.
So Daniel, a bit of 1 in, 1 out. Brian dropped out 5 minutes ago. He's off to church, and Fenrica Woodstuff has joined and says hi, DD and all.
Greetings. Thanks for coming by. All right, so we've got this pen done. So I'm going to set this off to the side in my configuration that I do, so I know which end goes where. And we will get the bolt action pen kit assembled now. So that, like I said, this bolt action is super easy to do in the grand scheme of things, just because there's 2 parts that you put into the tube, and that's all there is to it. Shay over at BB Wood Turning did a really good detailed video on this specific pen. And I think, if I remember correctly, he literally did start to finish. So marking the pen blank, cutting it, everything start to finish. So if you want a super detailed process on how to do it, definitely go check him out. I didn't obviously show cutting the tube or anything like that, but it's always, of course, a very similar process. So literally,
Daniel, if someone doesn't have a tube trimmer, are there alternative methods of flattening off the ends that could be used?
Absolutely. So you can use. There are people who use belt sanders. I have a belt sander set up as well, so I could do it that way if I chose to. Some blanks I will use the sanding portion to do the barrel trimming, just because of if the blank is really fragile or anything like that, it's important to do it that way. But as you can see, I literally have the pen assembled now. So then you just take the bullet point off, take the cap off the pen, the ink cartridge. We're going to put that partway down in, then we're going to put the spring over the end of it. You just put that all the way down in there, then you screw the tip back on and you're basically done.
Cool. So Daniel, someone's put in the chat that Turner's Warehouse have those feathers blanks if you were looking for them.
No, that's definitely good to know. So yeah, there's the pin completed, and it literally takes less than a minute to assemble it. Super easy. There's one piece you turn, and that's all there is to it. So then you have the bolt action like you would on a rifle that extends your ink cartridge, your nib down to be able to write with it. And that's literally how quick and easy that is to put together. So there's one part you turn, two parts you put together, and you're done. So that's why that, in my opinion, is a great starting pin to work with.
Yeah, it's effective, and the contrast you've got there between the top and the bottom and that nice spalted tamarind looks really good.
Yeah, I like it too. It works out very well. So these are, of course, are a little bit more complicated to put together, but that doesn't mean it can't be done. So it's just a matter, I've put enough of these together that I kind of know exactly what goes where and how it goes together. And so I'm just going to walk through it. I won't take if anybody has any specific questions on how I'm doing this, I'll be happy to do that. But I know I'm running late on time and I don't want to keep people too awfully long just to watch somebody assemble a pen. So
that's all right, Daniel. I'll just get my wife to drop you a message if that's okay.
Okay. sounds fun. So
look, Debbie Beardall's got a good tip, which is she says as she's drilling through the blanks, she uses the tip of her Jacob's chuck to flatten off the ends of the pen blank. So that's quite an interesting idea.
Oh, that's really good to know. I don't do a lot of drilling on my lathe, just because I have my drill press all basically set up and ready to go. Now, the one thing I will tell you is a hard lesson to learn is with these pins, you have these little beauty rings just to make everything seal up good. Make sure and put them on the right way to where it tapers into the threads, not the other direction, because yeah, they're hard to take apart, FYI.
Yeah, what surprised me that there's no gluing involved here, Daniel. Right? It's all pressure and push fit.
No, absolutely. I mean, you'll get the only gluing required typically is when you have to do when you have to put the tubes in the piece.
Mm-hmm.
So then the other thing is to remember which end there was. So I know I had this knot down at the tail end, and the tail end is where the post part goes. So I always put that part way threaded in. I don't want it all the way in because it can keep threading. And that way I can push the cap for the post down all the way to the threads and then continue pushing it and continue then threading that in as I need to. So that's the other one of my lessons learned is I would thread and thread and thread on that, and then it wouldn't go together very easily. So we have all Daniel, that part. Go ahead.
Jason's having to drop out, but he says he gives you congratulations once again.
Thanks, Jason.
You're making him proud.
Thanks, Jason. You're a good friend. I appreciate you.
And Lauren says you're costing him money. He says every time I watch something new is costing me money as I have to buy more tools. I think we're all there, Lawrence, with you.
Yeah, the tool purchasing is never ending. I guarantee you that. So then what I always do is I will take this and I will, so this is the part where you screw the cap to the pin itself. What I like to do is I like to take that and screw it down on the pin, and then I take the cap over it and I look to see how I like the lineups to go for the graining. This is really important. It's not as much, I guess, important with a burl piece because you don't get a lot of graining that travels through the wood. But when you have one that the graining is always going this direction, you really want it to line up the right way. So I have some highly figured walnut that looks really good, but of course, you can get that graining to line up. So what I look at is I look at these pieces here. So I really like how those patterns offset each other. And what I want to do is try and get that somewhat lined up as best I can before I push this together to lock it in. So now I know this lines up in one direction. It's going to line up. And now we're going to come down here and we're going to push this together. And then we'll be able to screw the pin together and it will line up the way I wanted it to. And I'll show you another secret that I have learned with these pins in particular is how to get the line up every time. So I know that I had this marking here, and I'll move it up a little bit. Probably might be a little blurry, but I had this marking and I wanted it to line up close to this similar marking. So the turn is actually just over a full turn on this pin. So I always rotate just a little back beyond where I wanted it to go. And then when I twist it around, it lines up perfectly exactly how I wanted it to.
That's a great tip.
And so there you have your finished rollerball pin kit. And you can get, these come with black ink. You can also get a blue ink. Now see, I didn't line it up. I didn't take the time, so it doesn't line up right. So you just roll it back, find where you want it to line, go back just a little bit. And what literally happens is you have that lined up. As you move it, there's a little click where it hits the threads, and then you twist it and you're done. So there's multiple ways you can line it up. But this is, so there's the Stabilized Maple Burl pin and the bolt action in Spalted Tamaring with the black enamel. So there you go.
Well done, sir. Two fantastic looking pens. That second one is especially beautiful, I would say. So brilliant.
Let me get the lights turned back on. And I turn those lights off because the overhead lights are so many lumens that it just washes everything out on the lathe. So big thank you, Adam. Let me pull you back in here. Hang on, sorry. Big thank you to Adam for stepping up. I know Hodge had, like I said, Hodge had something come up. He was planning on earworming, had something come up. And as I tell everybody, life is much more important than a silly YouTube channel or lives or anything like that. So make sure you live your life. Don't stick yourself into some box and live through a computer if you can. Just enjoy your life. So big thank you to Adam for earworming for me, for jumping in. Thank you all for coming along and joining me on my first live journey. And I hope you all have a great rest of your weekend, and we will catch you all later. So thanks for watching and have a great rest of your weekend.
Thumbs up, guys.